Millions of people know Keanu Reeves as a movie star, the man from The Matrix, John Wick, one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces. But what if everything you think you know about Keanu Reeves is only a small part of the story? What if one of the most famous actors in the world spent decades quietly carrying heartbreak, loss, and pain that few people could imagine? And what if the most remarkable thing about him has nothing to do with the movies at all? Because behind the fame, behind the fortune, and beyond the spotlight, there is a story that has turned a Hollywood celebrity into something far rarer, a symbol of kindness in a world that often rewards the opposite. Today, we're going to discover the hidden side of Keanu Reeves, and by the end of this story, you may never see him the same way again. To understand Keanu Reeves, you have to begin long before the red carpets, the blockbuster films, and the global fame. You have to go back to a childhood marked by instability. Keanu was born in Beirut, Lebanon, in 1964. His life could have followed a very different path, but when he was still very young, his father left the family. It was the first of many losses. His mother moved frequently, searching for opportunities and stability. The family lived in different cities and different countries. For many children, constant change creates uncertainty. For Keanu, it became a way of life. He attended multiple schools. He struggled academically. He often felt like an outsider. Nothing about his early years suggested he would one day become one of the most recognizable actors on the planet. In fact, there were moments when success seemed incredibly far away. Yet something unusual was happening. Every challenge was teaching him a lesson. Every setback was building resilience. And years later, those lessons would shape the way he treated people, when the world finally handed him fame. But first, he had to survive his journey toward it. As a teenager, Keanu discovered something that gave him purpose. Hockey. He loved the sport. He played with intensity and passion. Some even believed he could have had a future as a professional athlete. But life had other plans. An injury changed everything. Suddenly, the dream he had invested in began slipping away. For many people, that would have been devastating. But sometimes the end of one path becomes the beginning of another. Years later, Keanu would step into acting. At first, there was no guarantee it would work. There were auditions, rejections, uncertainty, long periods of waiting. The kind of invisible struggle that almost every successful person experiences before anyone knows their name. Then opportunities started to appear. Small roles became larger ones. Recognition slowly followed. And eventually came a film that changed everything. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. The movie introduced audiences to a young actor with an unusual charm. But while many saw a rising star, few understood the deeper story unfolding behind the scenes. Because even as success arrived, life was preparing some of its harshest challenges. The years that followed brought bigger roles, more attention, more opportunities. Then came speed. Suddenly, Keanu Reeves wasn't simply a promising actor. He was becoming a global star. The film was a massive success. Hollywood noticed. The industry opened its doors. Money, fame, and influence followed. For many people, this is where the story would become simple. Success, luxury, celebrity, the dream. But Keanu's story was never going to be that simple. Because while his professional life was reaching new heights, his personal life would soon enter darkness. And what happened next would quietly shape the man millions would eventually admire. In the late 1990s, Keanu found love with Jennifer Syme. Their relationship seemed filled with hope. Together, they imagined a future, a family, a life beyond Hollywood. Then tragedy struck. Their daughter was stillborn. The loss devastated them. It was the kind of heartbreak that changes people forever. The kind that leaves invisible scars. The kind that no amount of fame can protect you from. Many relationships struggle after such profound grief. Theirs did too. Eventually, they separated. But the story was not over. And what happened next was even more heartbreaking. A little over a year later, Jennifer Syme died in a car accident. She was only 28 years old. Imagine carrying one devastating loss, then another. Imagine trying to continue working while the world expects you to smile for cameras and attend premieres. Imagine experiencing that pain while millions of strangers assume your life is perfect. For many people, such losses would lead to bitterness. But Keanu's response was different, and this is where the hidden story truly begins. Because tragedy didn't harden him, it deepened him. People who worked with Keanu began noticing something unusual. Despite his fame, he treated others with respect. Despite his wealth, he remained humble. Despite his success, he seemed remarkably aware of the struggles of ordinary people. But nobody could have predicted how far that humility would go. As The Matrix became one of the most successful film franchises in history, Keanu Reeves reached a level of fame few actors ever experience. The movies generated enormous profits. His career exploded. He had every reason to embrace the lifestyle often associated with Hollywood's elite. Yet stories began emerging that didn't fit that image. Stories that sounded almost unbelievable. Stories that revealed a side of Keanu rarely seen in public. One story involved his earnings from The Matrix. Over the years, reports emerged that he voluntarily shared portions of his compensation with people behind the scenes, whose contributions he believed deserved greater recognition. Whether it was special effects teams or crew members, the pattern was consistent. Keanu often seemed less interested in maximizing personal gain than acknowledging the work of others. And that wasn't all. There were stories of gifts given quietly, acts of generosity that never became press releases, moments when he used his position not to elevate himself, but to help those around him. Most celebrities build their image through publicity. Keanu seemed to do the opposite. The more famous he became, the less interested he appeared in promoting his kindness, which raises an interesting question. Why would someone with immense wealth and influence repeatedly choose humility? The answer may lie in everything he had lost. Because people who understand pain often recognize it in others, and people who know how fragile life can be sometimes value human connection more than status. Over time, another image of Keanu began spreading across the internet. Not the action hero, not the celebrity, the human being. Photos appeared showing him riding public transportation, sitting quietly on a bench, helping strangers, giving up seats, sharing ordinary moments with ordinary people. None of these actions were extraordinary by themselves. That is exactly why they resonated, because in a world obsessed with image, authenticity had become rare, and Keanu seemed authentic. People sensed it, they felt it. The internet eventually gave him a nickname, the internet's boyfriend, but even that description misses something deeper. People weren't simply responding to kindness, they were responding to character, to consistency, to the feeling that fame had not erased his humanity. And perhaps the most remarkable part is that Keanu never appeared interested in turning that reputation into a brand. He didn't build an empire around being nice. He simply continued living his life, one decision at a time, one interaction at a time, one act of respect at a time. And that brings us to the most powerful lesson hidden within his story. Because Keanu Reeves is not remarkable simply because he experienced tragedy. Many people experience tragedy. He is remarkable because of what he chose to become afterward. He could have become cynical. He could have become angry. He could have withdrawn completely. Instead, he seemed to become more compassionate, more patient, more aware of the people around him. There is a quote often attributed to him that captures the spirit many associate with his life. "You need to be happy to live, I don't." Whether those exact words reflect his full philosophy is less important than what they reveal. They suggest someone who understands suffering, someone who understands that life is not always about happiness. Sometimes it's about endurance, meaning, connection, and choosing kindness even when life has given you reasons not to. That may be the true secret behind Keanu Reeves. Not the movies, not the fame, not the fortune, the choice, the daily choice to remain human, to remain humble, to remain compassionate, even after loss, even after heartbreak, even after success. Because perhaps greatness is not measured by how high someone rises. Perhaps it is measured by what they become after life knocks them down. And few stories illustrate that truth better than this one. When people think of Keanu Reeves, they often see an actor, a celebrity, a cultural icon, but beyond the spotlight, there is something more powerful. A man shaped by adversity, a man who carried grief quietly, a man who discovered that kindness can become a legacy. And maybe that's why his story continues to resonate across generations. Not because he is perfect, but because he reminds us that fame does not define character. Character reveals itself when nobody is watching. What about you? Did this story change the way you see Keanu Reeves? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoy discovering the hidden side of remarkable people, consider subscribing to See Beyond the Spotlight for more stories that reveal what exists beyond fame, beyond success, and beyond the spotlight.